in Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know.
Hola, bon dia, alegria. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show, the live stream, the podcast, and the Portugal Club, where we will go. And I've just been having a little look over at the Portugal Club. For example, due to the current bad weather, Antonio F is reporting Torres Vedras and other towns in central Portugal cancelled the carnival parades. Unfortunately, typical of the season, as in, well, I suppose the rain is becoming typical of the season in a way, perhaps not this intensity and duration. I note as well, listening to British news this morning, it's rained every day of 2026 so far in the UK. They're used to it over there. We're not here. I don't know if it's rained every day here in Portugal, technically, literally, but it certainly feels like it, and it's continuing this morning. But news coming in that more and more towns, I suspect, will be cancelling their early in the year carnival celebrations. Torres Vedras, a big one in the Portuguese calendar. Other towns in Portugal, Antonio F suggests, will carry on with the celebrations, festivities, but it will always depend on the weather conditions. So a sad blow to Portuguese cultural life from that point of view. That reported over at the Portugal Club from our great Vizinho Portuguese, Portuguese neighbor and BFF, Antonio Ferreira. Thank you so much for all you do for us over there. How are you this morning? Sorry I'm late. I'm not. I was wondering, what should I say about my lateness? Apart from that, I had a massive struggle to get up, but that's the honest truth. However, there might be a factor in this. This is going to be a bit weird, perhaps on a green screen, but this book, if you're looking at the screen, if you can see the screen, you'll see that Jeremy College wrote a book called "What on Earth is Chigong," and the subtitle of it is "The Missing Handbook to Modern Life." Jeremy, you'll have seen on the show, quite possibly. He lives in San Martino de Porto now. Quite coincidentally, it's been great to meet him, and I went to his introductory lesson, me and my daughter Minnie, who's 10, and we had a great. He might have reconfigured me, learned a beautiful qigong routine, absolutely, scratching the surface, I'm sure, and very, very introductory level. But it was quite a stretch, and it was quite challenging. And he may have done something. I might have been filled with Eastern type energy, reconfiguration or discombobulation this morning. Honestly, I think it is the age of discombobulation that we're in right now, and the weather here in Portugal and the devastation it's caused is just a part of that. And it's funny because not funny, funny, very peculiar. That when something goes on for long enough, it was like being in the pandemic, wasn't it? In a sort of Groundhog Day of, and how I refer to the pandemic, it was like one day but repeated for 2 years. The rain's a bit like that, and it just seems normal to catch a sight of the street outside my house and to see it wet. It's really, amazing what the human mind and consciousness is capable of, how it can adjust and take things into its operating system or awareness. It just seems like Portugal's a wet and cold place, and moaning about it is so normal now that we might even stop moaning about it and just hopefully never accept it, because we can't possibly, can we? We're not. Well, I suppose our skin in some way is waterproof, but we're not exactly designed to be living in constant rain and dampness. Any road up. Thank you for being here this morning. It'll be an easy one as well as a slightly strange one. You'll have seen the name of the live stream this morning. It has been christened "A Naval Gaze and Armed Response for Portugal's." I did this late last night, and honestly, I had a couple of glasses of wine as well, so I've repeated myself in the title there. A naval gaze. Nice wordplay, but a terrible repetition. A naval gaze and armed response for Portugal's storm response. I'm going to double down on that. It's jazz. I meant to do that. And the army had a press conference yesterday, which Natasha Dons certainly thought that was slightly strange, and took pen to paper to speak of it. And I'll have a little look through her article that was in the Portugal Resident yesterday. Mine got published early as well, actually. I filed something early yesterday morning for printing tomorrow about the difference between the Portuguese president. You may have noticed we have a new one of those, and the British King. Lots going on both sides of the water, obviously, and the royal family in Britain facing questions and heckling publicly, and quite rightly too, I would say, about one of their members, the allegations of behaving improperly, which I guess can be summed up by what I heard on the news with the constant analysis of it. And quite frankly, I can't find Natasha's message to me now. Oh, yeah, yes, I can. The armed forces give surprise press conference. I will have a little look into that a bit later on. I'm just opening that up on my screen. And we might have some light relief from a chap called Bruno as well this morning. We'll see. It was late last night that I invited him to be on the show. He wants to open a pub in Tomar. And I've got a scrap man trying to get in touch with me as well. This morning, I found somebody who will take away. You know, sometimes people just dump appliances. We'll come back to the British royal family. They just dump appliances by the bins. I don't really want to do that. And I heard that there's a chap who comes and gets things, who will come and collect from your house, which is a great thing. Hopefully, it's going to get used or scrapped or reused. And I've got an old oven and a dishwasher. Very prosaic, dull stuff, you might say, but you've no idea. Oh dear. Okay. Do you want to help me translate this morning? Yeah, perhaps you can. I tell you what, I'm going to put this in the chat. I'm having a simultaneous conversation with this chap. Great news last night, having passed on to my local restaurants as well, to tell you about this morning. I think I have been changed by the Chigong that I've done. What is this chap saying to me? I'm putting that in the comments down simultaneously. I don't want to miss him coming to the house and collecting these bits, which I will arrange after the show. Where were we? Oh, yeah, the thing I heard about the British royal family. Morning to you, Kate, as well, and Sarah, and the coach here this morning, Mike, Henry, and Nina, and Chris. Good morning to you. Come back to all of you a little bit later on. Is nobody should be ahead of the royal family is one of their sort of aphorisms, I think, for them managing their PR. But at the same time, one of these pundits said the royal family shouldn't be behind, or as in, public opinion. Should never get the better of the royal family. And notably, that's what happened when Princess Diana died. They were certainly caught short there. And those were entirely different circumstances. Tragic for sure. But we're talking about another level, aren't we, of alleged disgracefulness, disgustingness. I mean, I think what's being suggested is, and we will bring this back to Portugal, but I think if it's fair to say, in the age of discombobulation and great change in our Western culture across the countries of what we call Western civilization, we will be picking up on international news as well as reporting about what's going on in Portugal. Portugal is part of a particular kind of civilization which is going through an identity crisis at the moment. Portugal has a very particular part to play in that, I think, as well, and does. And is certainly can be seen at the moment to be a country that is dealing with changes in weather and weather devastation that will be seen elsewhere as well. So how we are responding to that will be a model. And it comes and goes. Countries take their turn in how they're representing and demonstrating what it is to be part of the Western alliance, if you like. And that there's also that expression as being a part of Western Europe too. The rest of Europe has followed suit. I think that entry system for Schengen has been scrapped for the time being all across Europe because of what happened with Portugal. I think I saw in the media, but certainly the royal. Let's just conclude on the British royal family. They've been massively caught short in their, what would you call it? I mean, the way they operate is all part of this, isn't it? They don't comment, they don't respond, they're not fast to deal with any accusations. They kind of hope it will pass, perhaps. They let it wash over them. They keep going as some sort of big, stoic, ancient institution that feels it isn't necessarily accountable to anybody. And the scale and nature of the accusations and stench nearby and within the royal family at the moment, to me, is so great, that they have to respond. And on the one hand, it's either a genuine old-fashioned way of responding, and there's nothing to see here, which personally I doubt very much, or there is something quite horrific to see here, and that's very difficult for all of us, British included, and the repercussions of that, like it or not, how the British royal family is a part of the world we have once known, whether we've loved or loathed it. It is certainly a fixture and fitting, and for it to have gone from what the late Queen Elizabeth seemed to represent to what it is now, potentially facing its demise, and what that means. And it's the same with politics, isn't it? It doesn't matter really so much. Or, I mean, it does matter, but there's another part to this. Whether you're left or right, blue or red, whether you're a Republican or a monarchist, something else is going on. You can have those fights on the level of whether you like it or not and where your allegiances lie, but the institutions themselves are seen to be failing at the moment. They are not fit for purpose. They are not what they once were. They're not delivering the comfort and support they once did. So quite rightly, people are asking, well, what's the point of them then, if this is the case? That was quite a detour, wasn't it? But maybe the Qigong's got to me. I don't know. The chap is saying, I only asked this question to see if I need to bring a trolley. Thank you very much, Kate. I mean, you can't get more diverse than that, can you? Okay, that's great. I will say Ateja then to him. With a smiley emoji, which is how you bridge across your lack of, well, it's how I bridge across my lack of Portuguese language sometimes. The immersion situation is really what works, I'm finding, with my work experience day that I did yesterday. Being in the thick of it, you just you just have to respond, don't you? Otherwise, you're hiding away and not speaking the language, which gives you a stay for a little while, a relief until you absolutely have to. I would suggest getting right into it and facing the music, the musical language that is Portuguese. And yeah, on the matter of Portuguese language and culture, hopefully Philomena will be with us on Friday. I completely understand if she isn't. And on another note, and the Portuguese joins us tomorrow. Looking forward to having a catch up with him. Quite a lot's happened since we last spoke to him on the screen here. I've been asked to do. I was spotted doing a Portugal quiz, which was combined with a wine tasting in San Martinho de Porto. One of the restaurant owners was there and heckling me quite vigorously, I have to say. He'd had a couple of sherbets. And lovely couple who own a restaurant here, who I met in the first week that we're in San Martinho de Porto. I don't know if you remember the story of how I went into a quiet restaurant in the fog one evening in San Martinho de Porto. Some of you who've been here will know who I'm talking about as I tell this story. And it's a little sort of bohemian place, proud to share Portuguese, locally provisioned wines and foods and cheeses and meats and so on, and Ricardo, the great chef, Anna out front. I was in there on my own asking if I could have a takeaway. She said, well, this was about 8 years ago. We don't really do takeaway, but I'll tell you what, we'll do that. We'll cook the food, take the plate, take it as it's served on the plates, and bring the plates back tomorrow. We were in a hotel room. We were so hungry though, and in need of some decent food and home cooking vibes, that I took her up on the offer. And a friendship began then that has resulted in last night Ricardo saying to me, that quiz you did, do you want to come and do it at the restaurant? Every week we'll have teams and we'll do a Portuguese quiz on food and wine and history. And I'm like, yeah, count me in for that. So lovely to see how the Portugal quiz on the screen here. And the citizenship test seems to be evolving into a Portugal quiz that I'll be doing on a weekly basis in a local restaurant and having some enjoyable food, wine, culture myself as I do so. So that's likely to be a Tuesday night here in San Martinho de Porto, and it'd be lovely to see your face in among the teams if you want to come and join us one evening. Coach Turner's in this morning. I suspect he'll come. But make sure you're here on a Tuesday, Coach, and come and join us for that. Bon dia, Gumpers. If Feliz Carta Hump Day arrives like a damp squib. Absolutely. Apparently you've had rain every day in the UK. for the whole year. Still, at least we're here to appreciate it. Still alive. The alternative is much. Well said, sir. Sarah, good morning to you. Thanks, Kate, for your help as well. The Carino is the trolley, of course, isn't it? A bon dia to you, Sarah, as well. Matty won't be happy about the rain. Is that what else is he? Well, he's always grumpy about something, though, isn't he? I hope he's not here to hear me saying that about him. Bon dia, Gumpers, from Mike. Good to see you. Henry and Nina, bon dia to you as well, and Chris. Chris, you're quiet about your journey this morning. Yes, sadly, ours has been rescheduled. Do you know, I've been talking about so many things this morning. I don't know what has been rescheduled now. I went to my weekly yoga session yesterday. Fantastic. I guess it's Chinese yoga. You could loosely refer to Qigong, couldn't you, and Tai Chi. And isn't it great to be moving your body in a way that you realize there are muscles there that you haven't used for 40 years, 50 years or something like that. It was really enjoyable. Great introduction that was understandable by me and my 10-year-old yesterday from Jeremy. And he is running a whole series of introductory lessons, tasters, and that's ahead of running a weekly group on a Tuesday morning here in San Martino de Porto. Thanks, Jeremy. Great. Lovely to get your book and lovely to hear of your obvious joy and passion for the subject and bringing that to people so they can stay flexible and healthy. It's medicinal. Excuse me. Isn't anything good for the throat chakra? It is medicinal. That's the approach that's used. It's for health and vitality, as well as flexibility and fitness. Hello, Jackie. Bon dia, Gumpers. I'm here, but not with it, as facing final vet visit this week with my little dog. So apologies for my silence. I'm sorry to hear you've been going through. Final vet visit. Oh, no, that sounds awful. So, yeah, that's going to be horrible for you there, Jackie, and sending you lots of love and hugs. Abraços from us here in Portugal. It's always horrible to have to do that, isn't it? Been there myself, and that's a horrific place to be. So sending you love there, Jackie. Oh, I went to my weekly yoga class yesterday near Ferreira de Zezer. The carnage compared to where we live was unbelievable, and she still has no power. Off-grid yoga, isn't that great? Able to do the yoga off-grid, presumably covered up inside, but without the power there. And we're still noticing this. Having talked to Paul yesterday, there are still many places that seem to be without power. Perhaps we'll go to a Safe Communities Portugal report as well. Oh, this is a message from Sue Walsh responding to a reel yesterday taken from the show with Paul. Our power was off for a week. Internet came back yesterday after I emailed Vodafone about something else, and mentioned we still don't have internet. So that message was useful. It does appear that it's, definitely worth contacting providers, says Sue. So thanks for that, Sue. If you're without and you're still without, as Paul suggested yesterday, that people might not know, the providers might not know you're without. So if you possibly can, maybe get somebody else to help you who has got a signal and connection. Let them know. Let them know that you do have, that you're still without after all this time. It is amazing how little microclimates make such a difference in damage between areas that are relatively close. Yeah, you've made this observation before, Pete, and it's absolutely right, isn't it? One side of the valley to the other. It's a starker contrast, I suppose, isn't it, of how late in the day, when you live in a hilly sort of mountainous area in central Portugal, perhaps it can be blazing sunshine, and then suddenly it gets switched off like a light. In San Martino de Porto, actually, when you're swimming in the bay, when the sun disappears behind the cliff edge there, this is the sort of thing I suppose is happening as well. How weather can change just within a few meters, 100 meters, with the microclimates that come from the topography. Thanks, T-Duck, for your message. I think don't text, don't drink and text, don't drink and set up a show. When I set up the show, it must have been after midnight last night, so I was setting it for the next day, which would have been tomorrow. So no shows were showing. Forgive me. I think we were all caught up and we're back together again now. And I'm pushing the button to go out on LinkedIn as well. We're out on my own personal profile on Facebook, the page, the Good Morning Portugal page, LinkedIn, X, and most importantly, perhaps YouTube. I thought this show was tomorrow. It certainly feels like it, doesn't it? Or yesterday, or sometime in the future, or some groundhog type recollection of the past. We were having lunch yesterday, and the cafe we were filled we were in, filled with the army. It was all felt very surreal, continuing eating pizza with a military presence. Yeah, and I think that's what's a bit strange about this story. About the military aren't in the background at the moment. And the immediate thing that comes to mind when the military are on the streets here in Portugal is, just over 50 years ago, how they took to the streets to overturn the government. They're taking to parts of the country at the moment to help in the cleanup effort. And you'll see an amazing Portuguese soldier, military boots on the ground. You'll see the soldier giving a sheep a lift to safety. And this reporting, armed forces give surprise press conference. Conference follows challenge to government by former admiral to get its house in order. That's Governmental Melo, the one of the former presidential candidates who got knocked out in the first round. I thought it was going to be between him and Andre Ventura. He crashed out. Maybe he's not happy about it. I don't know. We'll come back and have a look at that in just a moment. It is slightly odd. Thank you very much for your help on that and my scrap collection later on this morning. Cheers, Kate. We have fairly regular exercises near here, so see them a bit. The military here are pretty nice and well-mannered in our experience. Could also be a sack barrel. Anyway, he needs to know if he needs anything to bring something that would help him move it. Thank you so much for that. Gemini saying, Carl, I'm sick and tired every time you go in your phone, the media, etc. That's all you can see. Don't know what people want Charles to do. He took Andrew's title away, evicted him. Well, if you ask me, Gemini, I mean, there's the Tower of London. He could be locked up in there, but easier than that. He could just go to as he has been invited to do. I think ever since we saw him on the British television screens talking about somebody who doesn't sweat, I suspect he might be now. Sorry to make a cheap joke about that alleged medical condition, but there's a massive issue here and it is perhaps unfortunate that they are being used as totems for a globally rancid situation, and they are sort of figureheads or poster boys for that. But this has to be looked at, and if it begins, I think, with Andrew taking a flight to face questions at Congress, we are judged by the company we keep. I don't think there's any allegation. It would appear to be a fact that he aligned himself with Epstein, and perhaps it's only right that he faces further questioning on that, considering what Epstein has been up to and was convicted for. And I find myself being very careful about how I'm saying this. It not because I'm worried about allegations and the scale and so on of what goes on, but just out of sheer incredulity that I might say something sarcastic and just sort of I don't know, vindictive out of my frustration that I think a lot of people are feeling. I think you should go to Congress ASAP. As we're told quite often by people in authority, if you've got nothing to if you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to worry about. You've got nothing to fear. Perhaps that could apply to people in higher echelons of society. The sort of people who tend to say that sort of thing might live or die by that sword themselves as well. He took Andrew's title away, evicted him. He asked him to cooperate with the police. He did the right thing, but people are not happy. I'm one of them, quite honestly. I'm strong British and I believe in English history, and the royal family should stay. I'm not I'm not in disagreement with that. It's how they stay, isn't it? And in what format, and whether I think there's a kind of social bond, isn't there? Yeah, okay, you can be a royal family, but you have to behave in a certain way at the very least, don't you, to be worthy of that title and those privileges. And that would not appear to be the case by my reckoning, as I see it anyway. Bon dia to you as well, Neil. Good morning to you. Royal family, like Trump, don't pay any tax. And the fact that Maxwell parties were being held in publicly financed palaces, it makes me so glad to be in a republic. I don't think we are immune from corruption. However, that said, and there are still people who think there should be a royal family in Portugal. In fact, that there is a pretender to the throne. Is there not? There is a thing called Sebastianism, which is very interesting as well. There are people, there are supporters of, Salazar's ideas and regime. Takes all sorts, doesn't it? And I think it's important that we have open discussion about what people imagine are the benefits and so on in a polite, lawful, and if possible, friendly way on this, as we seem to be doing this morning. Absolutely, Jackie. Sending love to you. What a horrible situation to be in. And sorry that's mixed up with all this, very random and incongruous chat this morning. But it's where we are. It's where we are. It's sort of one way of seeing things. And it would be great, actually, if young Bruno can join us. He not today, I'm afraid. Okay, so he can't join us, but can do Friday if that works for you. Okay, let's give him a thumbs up for that. That's the fella who wants to open up. It was a great message on Facebook. A chap who wants to open up a kind of a boozer, a pub in Tamar with some experience. I think he's Portuguese with some experience of the pub trade in the UK. I think that could go down very well. Building sites, managing 2 major works in 2 different countries has really shown how different and capable we are. Weekdays UK, weekends in Portugal. It's worth waiting 6 months for the right builders. Absolutely. Both my kids did their national service here. That's very interesting. That can be a great idea, can't it? What was that like? Let me know if you don't mind, Andeira. Please send me Jamie's company contact details. It's time to plan solar. Okay, you've got it, I think, from Pete there. Staying awake after midnight and drinking, not a good combination for me. I enjoyed it. What with a bit of naked attraction as well. What a life we lead. Have you ever seen Polish naked attraction? It's quite the cultural insight. It's very authentic and vulnerable, as naked attraction, the premise of the show, obviously is. Bondi Ill from Gary, he's awesome. Who is? Diane has sent you these. Okay, that's your solar guy. We live near a large military base in Texas. Saw uniformed soldiers all the time. They're always very kind and respectful. Yeah, I think that's the general idea, isn't it? Unless crossed. The US has arrested more people in Venezuela than from the Epstein list. Yeah, it's befuddling. It's deep discombobulating. It's like, how is this possible? So forgive me if I seem to have been holding up particular individuals for particular scrutiny and punishment. I mean, anyone who's been involved in anything like that that's been suggested from the Epstein list, let's take them down. Let's get them arrested. How can it be that all this political posturing? It's like the rain, but the rain's natural. It keeps coming, and it's hard to understand why there's so much of it. But it would at least appear to be a natural phenomenon, or it depends who you speak to about that as well. But the storm of Epstein is all thunder and lightning, but no rain. No actual rain on the pavement, if you like. Just constant rumbling and a sense of unease. And if you look into it in any depth at all, a massive sense of disgust. But no one going down for any of it. How is that possible? So somebody's got to be the first, and perhaps it could be Andrew. Although in a way, strangely enough, that would seem a little bit unfair. That only an individual would take so much heat when clearly there are so many people involved and running for cover as we speak. And when it comes to people being hounded, that was never a problem, was it? When certain people needed hounding, harking back to the pandemic, they got hounded, didn't they? They got taken out of circulation. They got what was the word that was used? I can't remember now, but blacklisted, delisted, whatever. But if you said anything against the narrative as a fairly sort of normal person, you would be shadow banned and disgraced quite easily and publicly for having a different opinion, let alone behaving disgustingly in a depraved manner. People who do that seem to be able to walk among us. Well, actually, they're not walking among us, which is quite sensible at the moment, isn't it? But they're certainly not behind bars in the way that some people ended up behind bars and do end up behind bars. It seems, for saying things that go against what is deemed appropriate by certain government laws that are really just opinions, not behavior, not disgusting behavior, just opinions that go against certain other people's opinions, who seem to have more power than the ones who are having the opinions, who then get locked up. What a strange time! What a strange time! How is it possible? Yes, that would be a very simple answer to what I'm articulating there. Porky, I was chatting with a good Portuguese friend the other day. If you invade between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., you won't find anyone sober. Yeah, that's the way to do it, isn't it? Oh, very interesting, very funny too. Right, and yeah, so staying with the military. Actually, no. Let's before we go into any more blooming intrigue, as I seem to have done this morning. Forgive me. It might be the qigong. I might have been rewired, but don't let that put you off. Is there an update? Oh, I'll tell you what we have had, and I'm not surprised to see this here in Portugal: the resignation of the Minister of International Administration. Oh no, that should be internal administration, I think. This lady, whenever she was in a press conference, she looked like a proper rabbit in the headlights. Now, on a human level, I felt very sorry for her because she looked like, she could be someone's gran. It was out of her depth, and on that level, I felt quite sorry for her. But it is a job that needed doing, and someone to rise to the occasion and not look like they were going to burst into tears at any moment. On Tuesday evening, it was announced through an official statement released on the presidency of the Republic's website that Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa accepted the resignation request. He's still processing stuff of Maria Lucia Amaral. This is the lady I'm talking about, who felt she no longer possessed the personal and political conditions necessary to hold the position. Fair play to her for saying that and offering her resignation. This is the first resignation of the 25th PS CDS-PP government led by Montenegro, just over 8 months after he took office on June the 5th, which I suppose is quite a good record, isn't it? 15 people have died in Portugal since January the 28th. That's the death toll now, following the passage of storms Kristin, Leonardo, and Marta, which also caused many hundreds of injuries and displacements, and of course, billions in damage in financial terms. The President of the Republic accepted the resignation request of the minister, didn't argue about it, of internal administration, who felt she no longer possessed the personal and political conditions necessary to hold the position. So that's part of this background of what was going on yesterday, which I shall share with you. An hour ago, we still have yellow. Actually, let me bring this onto the screen so you can see it as a respite, just from my boat race on the screen here. There you go. Safe Communities Portugal. Thanks, guys, over there for providing this. IPMA yellow warning, rough seas, turning orange at 3 o'clock. It's supposed to be another rainy, windy day, stormy-ish day today, and a bit of respite tomorrow, as I understand it. And then for the second half of the month, a much better February, it has been suggested. Now, it's difficult to believe these sort of things, but we're certainly hoping for it. 3 o'clock, continuing until the 12th of February. And perhaps this is where we'll begin to see a change in the weather. It's due, isn't it? It's absolutely due. Orange warnings, northwest waves with a significant wave height of 5 to 6 meters, potentially reaching 11 meters. Orange warning for the northwest. The rain warnings are still for 15 districts, 9 at orange level, and a remainder at yellow level until 6 this evening. So expect rain all day today. Orange warning, persistent and heavy, sometimes heavy rain, especially in mountainous areas. And we still have yellow warnings for strong winds for 8 districts from midday until 9 this evening, with gusts of still up to 80 kilometers on the coast and 100 kilometers per hour in the highlands. That is your, those are the warnings anyway. And I see just some flashing up on my screen there. You can see somebody still without water here in San Martin de Porto, right next to the sea and without water. Persistent and sometimes heavy rain is the forecast then, especially in north and central regions, more general forecast, where it will turn into showers from late afternoon. Possibility of thunderstorms in the north and central regions, light to moderate winds, obviously, especially in the coastal areas and the highlands. Lisbon metropolitan, periods of persistent and sometimes heavy rain until late afternoon. Light to moderate wind from the southwest, occasionally blowing up to 45 kilometers per hour, especially along the coast, with gusts of up to 65. Possibility again of mist and fog. Same in Porto, possibility of mist and fog, persistent and sometimes heavy rain becoming showers from late afternoon today. Possibility of thunderstorms and moderate wind from the southwest, occasionally getting up to 45 kilometers per hour, and gusts occasionally in the Porto metropolitan area of 80. Sea conditions, you've heard them there, but north of Cabo Raso, waves from the northwest and west from 4 to 5 meters, increasing to 5 to 6 meters. So, just the headline: more rain today. Hoping for a break in that tomorrow, and certainly for a better second half of the month. Still a warning in place for inundation by water around the Mondego River area. Risk of overflowing and flooding. Be prepared, be protected. Can't let our guard down, certainly in particular places like the Mondego. Would it be called the Mondego Basin, the area? The rivers around Coimbra, still a warning in place, aviso à population. So still that in place, preventative evaluation, around 3,000 people being carried out. They're not literally being carried out. I think the evaluation is being carried out. This would include river areas of Conraria, Cobuxo, Ceira, Torres de Mondego, San Martinho do Bispo, Ribeira de Frage, Taveiro, Amael, and Arzila. Now, you do get place names in Portugal used over and over again in different places. I may have read a name out there that caused some concern. Make sure it is the one that is in the municipality of Coimbra. The measure could cover about 3,000 people and is being carried out in advance as a precaution. So if you live in those areas, you might get a preemptive knock on the door to tell you to prepare. Also, quite a lot of reporting, it would appear, from Safe Communities Portugal this morning. Heavy rain, soil instability. This was what Senor Silvestre from Civil Protection was warning about. You can see storms and you can see the effect of the wind and things blowing in the wind, but not so much soil instability and possible landslides. If you see dangerous situations such as new cracks in walls, fences, platforms, or land, lowered walls or walls developing cracks, muddy water seeping from the ground or slope, roads within undulations or subsidence, earth movement, stones, or shrubs, you can contact the emergency services on 112, the Bombeiros or Municipal Civil Protection. And if it's a road safety issue, let the GNR or PSP know. And there's a picture of quite the landslide there, which of course will be more possible and perilous in mountainous and less traveled routes, I suppose. It could be a while before some of these are seen. If you've ever driven on those, you'll know that, sometimes vehicles don't pass there for hours on end. You'd be pretty mad to be up there, I think, at this time in Portugal's history and with the conditions as the way they are at the moment, as beautiful and as an amazing and what an incredible view you would get from up there. Perhaps it's best to stay out of such areas and keep monitoring on behalf of everybody else in the way that's been suggested there. And our next storm, everybody, Nils, Nils. After Marta comes Nils. Mainland Portugal will not be directly affected by Nils. Okay, so it's more a matter for sea conditions, which, however, has associated fronts that will transport a mass of warm and humid air to the Iberian Peninsula today, February the 11th. Okay, so Nils worst felt at sea, but with associated warm fronts that are bringing warm and humid air to the Iberian Peninsula. Is that what's causing the rain, perhaps, there? Okay, much more clearly at Safe Communities Portugal this morning. And you're going to get your full hour again here, Chris, I would say, and I'm sure more comments coming in from you this morning as well. Yeah, the news earlier on, the cancellation of, be aware of cancellation of Carnival. We've got to do something, haven't we, for morale? But maybe Carnival, isn't it? Maybe smaller scale gatherings just to get the spirit back of the joie de vivre and the Portuguese equivalent of joie de vivre, which understandably people have been quite upset and depressed and put upon in this last little while. But we will be back. Definitely, we'll be back partying as soon as it seems appropriate to do so, right? Good news then. Yeah, I popped something up at the Portugal Club yesterday. Weather update, much calmer, sunnier second half of February. This was forecast by somebody on X. What are they called? Weather Alert or something like that. Weather Watcher. After Wednesday, Thursday, the pattern changes completely and we will have a period of calm. We can expect days of fog and humidity, but then we're used to that. But then we will see the end of this period of depressions, says climatologist. And it's so interesting, isn't it? The how the language works on so many levels. We will have a much calmer, sunnier second half of February, he stated, adding that we may have another rainy day. I think that's today, but nothing compared to the first half of the month. Okay, brighter days, folks. I was a bit early when I suggested that, wasn't I, on Monday? Okay, let's have a look at your comments before we have a look at this odd press conference and the criticisms of the former admiral of the Navy here in Portugal. Let's have a look. Both my kids have very different social circles, and nearly all their friends don't drink. Very different than our days. It's true, isn't it? Not so much into the boozing, and sometimes you can understand why, can't you? Especially when you're in older age and it takes you 3 days to recover from a binge. The new president lives in Caldas de Rainha, and I said this to somebody yesterday. I can't remember who I was speaking to. Somebody not entirely enamored with the result. It's interesting, isn't it? You know how things are reported and how you tune into that as a foreigner trying to get a sense of things from the media, and then you speak to everyday people, your hairdressers, your taxi drivers and colleagues. And someone said to me, when I said to him, he seems like a very down-to-earth bloke, he's not going to be going to Belém Palace, he lives in Caldas de Rainha, he's our neighbor. He said, don't you worry, he'll be in the palace eventually. It's like champagne socialism. The new president lives in Caldas de Rainha. Says he will stay there, right? And as I understand it, will just be using the Belém Palace, which comes with the job. And I think he gets about 11 grand a month in that role, a little bit more than the minimum wage. But he says he wants to stay in and around Caldas and will be using the palace for on-state occasions, I suspect. Yeah, his wife is from Caldas, and that's where their family home is. She did not visit any storm damage for the first 48 hours. Not his wife, I hasten to add. That's the woman who's now resigned. Bon dia to you, Mel, as well. He did a celebratory announcement at the Congress, the CCC. That looked pretty amazing, I have to say. I love Caldas. Me too. The Caldas Appreciation Society is here, everyone, this morning. We had an apartment there for a few years. Have walked every street of Caldas. I've walked a few of them with you. Excellent antique furniture store just down the street from the CCC. That's the concert hall as well, isn't it? Forgive me as I take a sip of tea. It's that kind of morning. Stay warm, stay cozy, drink tea. And I'm feeling very grateful, fortunate that I got out of bed even this morning. It was very nice under that duvet as the rain was coming down again outside against the window. The restaurant in the park is very good. Caixa restaurant, yes. I am not a big drinker, but there is something so special about produce with no nasty. Not a big drinker. My experience of you is that you is, but I generally see you once a month at the wine club. Isn't it amazing? Point of view and perspective that people have taken time and care. Yeah, I think you're just doing it to be polite. Caixa do Parque, there is the name of the restaurant that we thoroughly recommend. Favorite restaurant in Caldas is Maria Giga, next to the train station. That's the one. We were watching a wedding going on in the bandstand. Apparently, a very rare event. How lovely! What was people getting married? A rare event, or that particular place? Thanks, T-Duck. We'll go there next time we're in Portugal. We enjoyed sitting outside of Caixa do Parque, drinking Espumante and watching the world go by. How lovely. And hopefully we'll have the conditions to do that again soon. We passed many landslides on the road and flooded roads on the way to Coimbra yesterday. Thank you for that report, Andero. We went one way but had to return another due to a flooded road. It's still ongoing, folks. Be careful. Yes, we spent a happy couple of hours there doing exactly that, watching the world go by in Portugal. You actually can't get into the park at the moment. The Dom Carlos Park is shut, and I was sent a picture of the sign saying it's shut for public safety at the moment. Unbelievable, says Dougie Hughes, who's with us now as well. Amount of rain and wind has pummeled the Iberian Peninsula and southwest UK. Morning, Doug. I think he has a child in school in Caldas de Rainha. Imagine that, being a child of the president. I hope it went as well as Diane's op has. I'm glad to hear that as well. Friends here of the community on the mend, which is great. I'll stay in the palace for a few nights so it doesn't get lonely. Well, there's a thing. It's definitely something from the I think from Portugal's regal past, is it not? Certainly the Ajuda palaces, that's worth a visit. Would love to stay in there. Can you do that? Is that a tourist thing? You stay there for a night. The Ajuda Palace is fantastic. Not a million miles away from the Belém Palace of the president. Right, this strange army press conference yesterday. Now, you would expect the army, or the armed forces generally, to have a press conference if invited to do so by the government, by their bosses, I suppose you could say. It's not unfair to say that, is it? That's the chain of command. Chief of staff, etc. It's the politicians, for better or worse, who get to deploy the armed forces, not always brilliantly, as we can see throughout history. That's a nice touch. There's now a podcast link on the top bar of the Resident, and I'm delighted to be associated with that. Anyway, armed forces give surprise press conference. And it goes on to say here, reporting by Natasha, who I'll speak to on Friday morning and talk to her more directly about this. Conference follows challenge to government by former admiral to get its house in order. Is he just upset that he didn't become president? I wonder. Let's find out. Two extremely unusual surprises came today. First, the accusation by former Admiral Enrique Guillermo that the government failed across the board in dealing with the carousel of storms that have devastated large swathes of the country. Secondly, a press conference held by the armed forces, ostensibly to give a general update on the military's extraordinary level of support on the ground since Storm Kristin. Could the two surprises be linked? If so, what is the general intention? Commentators have been discussing how rare, for that, read, this has never happened before, it is for the armed forces to organise a press conference of this type. Press conferences of this type are generally organised by the authorities, meaning agencies of government. As I suggested, the boss says, you need to speak to the country. They did it off their own back here. And is it off? Help me out here. Is it off your own bat or off your own back? And the apparent reason for the press conference seemed more of an excuse to tackle other criticisms that have appeared in the press over the course of the last week, namely that the military didn't respond quickly enough after Kristin hit, and that certain members were unable to vote in the presidential elections because they were on missions outside their voting jurisdictions. Lieutenant Colonel Susana Pinto led the press conference and explained how and why the military had acted the way it did. Since we are not primary agents, the system does not foresee that immediately after the approval of a new state of alert, we have to comply automatically. She said, yeah, they take their orders. They can't just decide to show up, can they, and offer help without direction from the government. The first formal request for intervention occurred on January the 28th, the moment Storm Kristin arrived. And from January 29th, military boots on the ground were progressively reinforced. And you can see some military boots there carrying a sheep. That was in, I think, the Tasia flooding that caused that particular photo there. So they were on the ground after the 28th. Since that time, the armed forces have been monitoring the state of readiness continuously. And according to the evaluation of the situation, they have no plans to stop their interventions. We will remain committed for as long as necessary to save lives, protect property and infrastructure, and accelerate the return to normality. Isn't it great to hear that? Whilst the squabbling class of political life is occurring, there are people actually getting on with it in uniform on the ground, doing great work. As for concerns about soldiers unable to vote, in an election with comparatively low rates of abstention and a new president voted in with the highest number of votes in history, the message was that no soldier was forbidden from leaving his or her post in order to exercise his or her democratic right. The military was told to go and vote if they wished to, came the reply. That had never occurred to me, the fact that they were perhaps deprived of being able to vote because they were mobilized far from their home where they were registered to vote. But there seems something odd about the press conference, continues Natasha, because as it did the evening before Parliament is due to discuss the government's performance in the latest crisis. They were pre-briefing, perhaps. Commentators, and in public too, commentators watching it unfold were divided over whether the armed forces did the right thing in calling the press to hear their side of the story, or whether they were rather unusually out of line. The understanding is that tomorrow in Parliament will not be pleasant. Guillermo's article, appearing in Publico, seems to set the scene for bitter debate. He says, the ex-military man, he, of course, was spearheading the vaccination campaign here in Portugal that you may remember. We failed in planning, in providing early warning, in issuing clear alerts to the population, in communicating the danger, and in providing practical advice on what should be done. We failed in the desired readiness and response capacity. But above all, we failed in what should never be failed, in leadership. Capable, committed, attentive, and empathetic, he wrote, referring to a simulation of frenetic governmental activity that hid incapacity, disorganization, and lack of direction, causing abandonment, frustration, and disbelief on the ground, which can lead to radicalization. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? That brings together, I think, his military background his political sensibilities, which will have been sharpened during his presidential campaign, and maybe a little bit of sour grapes that he didn't get that position. I don't know. It's impossible for him to be reported on without the influence or the lens of him not being successful in his campaign. Of course, readers may need to think here. Is Natasha telling us what to think? Why is Gouvier Mello saying these things? Didn't he just lose his bid for the Portuguese presidency? Didn't he say at some point towards the end of the campaigning that if he did not win, he would go back to his life, have a holiday? Perhaps he's writing his opinion piece on holiday, but still, it's a little odd. Espresso writes, calling for political consequences for the failure, the Admiral warns the Prime Minister that he should reflect on whether, given the evident lack of preparation and capacity of the Minister of Internal Administration, she is fit to remain in her position. Well, update there, she's quit. And maybe as a result of this, he suggests a top-to-bottom overhaul of civil protection and the creation of an army unit for situations of this type. That's pretty good advice, isn't it? Let's face it, given that we may, we're being prepped on a number of fronts here, aren't we, to prepare for, this. On the one hand, politicians will say, well, this is very unusual, and that's why we weren't prepared. But at the same time, messaging has included, be prepared for a 72-hour disaster of some sort. That saber has been rattled as well from the higher echelons and leadership of society. He also expects the creation of a task force to coordinate recovery operations, which in fact already exists. Yes, again, that's interesting to note, isn't it? A lot of this does exist. Maybe it's just not given the right name or people aren't aware of it. Coordinated by Paulo Fernandes, the former mayor of Fundão, the paper points out. What were today's surprise interventions really all about, says Natasha, rubbing her chin here. We may find out later, as the former admiral is due to be interviewed by SIC Noticias at some point this evening. And so that was last night. And before that happened, news bulletins reported that Maria Lucia Amaral has resigned. So there we go. She is updated on that, her position as Minister of Internal Administration. Let's hope that that isn't too much of a distraction from what needs to be happening on the ground. There's a balance to be struck, isn't there? There's a time and a place for seeing what went wrong and putting it right. But in the meantime, not depriving people who need help now and support now, and their roofs putting on their homes and electricity and connections of all kinds of utilities. That needs to happen as a priority, rather than too much navel gazing and hand-wringing from those who are in a position to do something about it. Okay, mate. Yes, I'd be delighted to. A live GMP from the Belém Palace. Isn't that an amazing idea? That would be nice, actually, when the weather clears up, to go on the road and do. Be nice, actually. We're looking at getting a new vehicle at some time soon. A tour bus emblazoned with Good Morning Portugal, going to various places around the country, meeting foreigners from all over the world here in Portugal and chatting to them about their experience. As we are something of a platform for immigrants, foreigners, and expats here in Portugal. It'd be great to meet a few of you on the road around the country. Pleased to hear Diane's Op was such a success. Unfortunately, it looks like things will be staying the same here. Nothing a man of my stature can. Oh, bless you, Andero. Lots of love to you. Big hug, man. They have been fantastic at the hospital, bending over backwards trying to help. Who doesn't like, as they are at our local clinic, bending over backwards? I think, are they asking you to do that from time to time as well, Andero, as part of your examination? That is our experience as well. Admittedly, we have a doctor that comes out to us. Love the fact that the new president is from Penamacor, yep, or Penama Vegas, as we call it, not far from Bongdita, I think. Our new clinic in our new area is totally different than where we lived before. They're so helpful and so accommodating. The others weren't. Wonder if he needs a house and pet sitter in Belém when they aren't there. What a great idea. Should a load of us foreigners move in there and take care of business for them? There you go. Just to make sure that Time Monitor Chris is satisfied this morning. I think he's probably already tucking into his first barista-created coffee at work. Yes, he's got his own barista. Well, he has to share the barista with other colleagues, but things have changed since my day. Never had actually, we had some nice perks where I worked, it has to be said, but not our own corporate barista. Anyway, something has to be done with the massive army of baristas that they have in the UK, staying out of the rain at the moment. Right, an odd one, I'll be the first to admit it. In these strange times of discombobulation, welcome to the discombobulation, everybody. Stay safe, stay well in the localized and regional, national situation that we have in Portugal. And in view of the world situation as well, let's stick together. Fica junto, fica bem. What's her name? I want to know more about this barista. And mate, can you mention that Good Morning Portugal are aware of this amazing barista? And if she performs some of that amazing barista art, the milk foam media, that is a piece of art as well as a tasty drink, we would love to show pictures of it on the Good Morning Portugal show. Let's make friends with your barista over there, and maybe share some coffee recipes in the morning. Talk about Portuguese coffee a bit. Smash that like button. Final message from T-Duck, and we'll see you again tomorrow with the Portugueser. He won't be short of a word or opinion or two, will he, about what's been going on tomorrow morning? And I noticed he changed his tune a little bit as to his political allegiances, I think, with the presidential election. And we'll talk about the result with him tomorrow. Take care. Bye for now.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need